Hi everyone, Krystal here with Krystal Hise Portrait Artist for part 3 of Watch Me Paint. We're going to be continuing a Maine Coon cat painting that I've done part 1 and part 2 of. It's been a lot of fun so far, so I'm looking forward to sharing with you guys another iteration of that. So let's switch over to a screen share mode here so you can see where we were as of last time. So part 2, we really focused on kind of painting out some of these whiskers that were really bright and in your face on both the left and the right side of this cat's face. And the reasoning for that is we want to paint the kind of under layers first before we get to that top layer of paint. As if we were painting with real paint, you want to make sure that all of the colors are appropriate underneath, and then paint those whiskers in as the kind of final finishing touches. Once again, this is not for teaching purposes. This is just to show you what my thought process is while I'm in the middle of painting and while I'm going through client paintings, and also just to keep my skills nice and sharp and continue to practice what I'm learning and just my skill set in general so that I can continue to produce excellent work for my fantastic clients. So I've got a brush here that I love to use, and I'm going to turn off the paint, and this little dark brown spot on the right-hand side is really drawing my eye, so I'm just gonna push that back just a little bit here. Now, at the end of part 2, I drew these red little circles to showcase how sometimes when I'm painting, I can accidentally move a line of a facial structure or something like that when I'm working with really creating kind of bringing in extra dark paint kind of in that underlayer. So I drew circles around that to kind of use it as a talking point, but also to remind myself, hey, you need to double check the reference image for this to make sure that it looks appropriate and that facial line of the cat's face goes back to the way it's supposed to go. In fact, one of the things that I would do just to kind of address that a little bit here is let's just go ahead and pull out some of that. I am going to turn, whoops, I need to change the name of this. Turn off my paint layer so that I can see whereabouts I need some of this to go through. Ooh, I love the brushy look of that. Oh my goodness, that looks awesome. Okay, that is looking much better. Bring it in here actually just a little bit, and then out just a little bit more. Okay. I do this a lot when I'm working on client work just to kind of make sure my brain is in the right headspace for where I'm going in terms of my target, because I really want to do right by my subjects here and have each painting be a really good homage to the subject that I'm painting, but also allow myself some of that creativity and artisticness as I'm painting as well. So I don't want it to be a carbon copy of the photograph, but I also want to make sure that it truly does look like the subject that we're painting. So that's why I want to make sure that I'm doing right by that subject. There is a tiny little red spot right in the middle here. Not sure exactly what that's from, but I do want to turn on the paint and kind of give a little bit of that back. Let's see. It's a little bit brighter than that, so let's. Okay. All right. I don't want it to be an in-your-face bright pink spot. Now, if this were a client piece instead of a practice piece, this is actually a great talking point too. I would have a discussion with my client about, hey, tell me about this pink spot on the cat's lower jaw. And if the client tells me, oh my gosh, it's been there since birth, this is just a beautiful, I don't know, birthmark or special marking that I absolutely adore, I would absolutely keep it in the final painting. If it was something like, say, my client told me, oh, well, she bumped into something and kind of has a little bit of an abrasion there, and I'm sure it's going to go away. then we'd paint that out. And you know what I would do if that were the case? I would take no paint and probably just kind of meet and blend that out so that you can't even tell that it was there. So let's say that that was the case, and let's leave it like that. Okay, so we have got some more whiskers to paint out here. Let's see. This can be a little bit of a time-consuming part of the process, but it feels really good when it's done because you can really tell that you've done something there. Sometimes during the painting process, when you're working in a really tiny area, you can put in a ton of work, but then if you zoom out, it doesn't actually look like you did very much. You know you did, but it's so minute that it's a lot harder to tell. So something like whiskers can be fun at this early stage in the process. So I have a new camera view to share with you guys. I am going to switch to this neat little overhead view so that you can see my hands and what I'm doing with my pen and my tablet while I'm painting. Thought that would be a fun addition to show you guys just how many brushstrokes I'm making and how often I am pulling the pen off of the tablet while I'm working. Because it's definitely not a scribble, scribble, scribble. There are so many individual brush marks that I'm making throughout this entire painting process. Okay, so this is going to go through a little bit of an ugly phase as I paint out these whiskers because I'm moving a ton of paint around to make this happen. Trying to keep it in the same kind of paint color family as what's underneath it so that I don't have to do quite so much, I don't know, repair work, I guess you could call it, after the fact. But basically, we just want to get rid of that white and almost like a neon blue. In a previous Watch Me Paint part, we talked about how in the photography world, it's called chromatic aberration, that kind of glitch blue that you see on the whiskers there. Okay, so let's pull in some of this color here. And at this stage, it's all about layering. So I am pulling from various different colors of the cat's fur because if I just stayed with one color as I'm rebuilding in this depth here, it would look super, super flat. So I'm pulling darks that are almost in the blue color family. I'm pulling in some browns. I'm pulling in some dark orange here. And all of this is going to continue to give that depth of the fur that is behind the cat's facial area here. There we go. That's looking good. Let's pull in some lights because contrast is really key here in addition to color. Okay, so see how once again we still look like we have a lot more weight on the left side of this cat's face than the right. So I am once again going to turn off the paint so that I can really see what's going on here. It does look pretty even except for some tufts of fur that really come out between the whiskers here on the right. For the most part, it looks pretty even. So this is where we're at here on the left. So it looks like I actually have pulled out some of this fur further than it needs to go. So what I'm going to do is back that back off just a little bit. And bring it in places and then pull it back out only to give it that soft tufted fur look. Okay, that's already starting to look better. Okay, right in here. It needs to go in more. Right there. Okay, that's looking better right there. Yep. Okay. Yep. Now let's look at the right side. Okay, right about here. And then we're coming back out. Okay. Let's go kind of like that. Oh, I have a dark color picked up on my paintbrush. That's why that's looking weird. Okay. Turn off the paint for this part. If you hear buttons clicking, that's because I'm using something called a Stream Deck that gives me little shortcut keys that are super, super helpful for this process. This isn't an ad for Stream Deck or anything like that, just something that I happen to legitimately use that I really love as part of my process. Okay, that's looking a lot more balanced. Let's turn on the red circles from before. Those are the areas we're looking at. That looks way better. Turning on and off the paint one more time. I like that a lot. Okay, so we will come back and add back in the whiskers, like I said, at a later time. But I do want to add in just a tiny little bit of darker spots here in the fur. Because if I turn the paint back off, see how there are these darker little tidbits of fur. It looks like where some of the whiskers are originating from. They almost look like polka dots. Now, that's not necessarily what I want this to look like on the cat, but I just want to give kind of a bit of an homage to these darker spots. There we go. Because the fur right here is not completely white. This area here with fur like this is probably where I take some of the most amount of artistic license. Just because if there's some hair that looks really scraggly, or if a particular area is quite beautiful and I want to exaggerate it a little bit, oh my goodness, absolutely. One of the ways I can check to see if I've covered over the entire painting is kind of the inverse of what we were doing earlier. Before, to check and see what the image looked like underneath, I was turning on and off my paint layer. So what I can do instead is turn on and off the image layer underneath to see where some of the holes are. Nope. I do, however, have to have it named appropriately if I want my buttons over here to be able to work. Okay, so you can see like right here in the middle, there's a lot of blue canvas showing through, so that's an area that is missing. Oh, except it helps if I draw it or if I continue to paint on the correct layer. Okay. So let's see. Yep, right here. Okay, here. There are some additional methods that I can use to make sure that I don't have any missed pixels, but this is an easy one to do at this stage of the painting, just to see if there's any large segments that need work. And then I can come back through and finesse it with detail. The same way I would if this were an oil painting, starting with kind of a blocking in of everything and then putting in a bit more of a modeling layer and then coming back in with your detail. So let's turn the paint off and take a peek. Okay, so in reality, maybe her fur is a little bit straighter than the movement that I gave it, but you know what? I'm totally okay with that. Just making a couple of quick adjustments on the fly based on what I'm seeing on the image layer. Let's add a little bit of lightness right there. Yeah, that'll make more sense when we add the whiskers back. Okay, I think she is looking pretty darn good for today. So I think I'm going to stop here. Let me switch back to webcam view. So thank you so much for joining us for part 3 of our Watch Me Paint with this beautiful Maine Coon cat, who I wish I knew her name because she's just stunning and I love her already. Definitely form a bit of an attachment to the subjects that I paint because I pour a lot of my heart and soul into these and it's a lot of fun. I love what I do so much and I think it's just a little easy to become attached when you're working with a particular subject for so many hours. So anyway, thank you again for joining us. I really appreciate your time. I hope that you found this interesting, a little bit of a peek behind the curtains of Krystal's brain and what's going on while I'm painting, as I just kind of talk through it while I'm painting with you. So thank you so much. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave a comment. And I look forward to working on part 4 of Watch Me Paint. All right. Thanks, guys.